Hey guys, it's me, Sam Stein, managing editor at the Bulwark. I'm here with the one and only, the incomparable, the unbeatable, the suavest man in the business, Max Tani. He is a
I'm
friend of the show, I think, until we'll see how this
yeah,
goes. Yeah.
that's true. No
uh,
promises.
no
No promises by the
promises.
end of the episode.
Exactly. Well, as always, subscribe to the feed. We appreciate it. Even if we're featuring people like Max, it's important. Max is here to talk about a very sad topic, honestly, a very sad, grim topic, the state of media. Specifically, we're going to focus today on the Washington Post. We could talk about a number of different outlets that are going through some turmoil. I think we might be conflicted if we talk about a couple of them. So we're going to stick to the Post for now, which neither of us have worked for. Max, what the fuck's going on with the Post?
Well, the Washington Post this week, over the last pretty much since the beginning of the year, have announced a series of layoffs. They announced that 4% of the workforce was being laid off from the paper. It was going to be focused on the business side, not on the newsroom, which already has gone through several rounds of layoffs over the last several years. And that comes at a moment when a number of its top DC staffers, folks who broke some of the biggest stories that the Post has covered, all one by one in succession, left for some of its direct competitors in Washington, which I think it's safe to say that pretty much everybody interpreted in the DC media landscape interpreted as a sign of a vote of no confidence by some of the top talent in the Post. And media companies are really built based on reputation, and reputation really matters, and what people think really of you and your standing really matters, both to advertisers, to subscribers, and also to recruiting good talent. And so that many people leaving and then having these cuts this week, it's a bad sign for the Post. On top of course, what was reported to be somewhere between 250,000 and 300,000 people deciding to unsubscribe last year as a result
Those
of
are digital subscribers.
digital subscribers. There's a little bit of fuzziness around some of
Okay.
these, and the Post has never confirmed on the record any of these numbers. But they lost a massive amount because of owner Jeff Bezos' decision not to endorse Kamala Harris, which is one of the big reasons why
It
all of
was
this stuff
not
is
to.
happening
It
now.
was more than that. Just to be clear, they were going to endorse, and he decided to hold it back. All right, look, I'm old enough to have lived through a cycle of this before. During the aughts, a bunch of talent left the Post. Jim Vandehei, John Harris, Mike Allen. We've seen it happen a couple times with reporters. Peter Baker left the Post. He was there. Everyone was writing that this was the end of the paper. It made a comeback, obviously. Is this just cyclical or is this different?
There is a level to which this stuff is always cyclical, and you see shuffling around of deck chairs and kind of musical
Yeah.
chairs between different publications. And so one publication that we used to work for,
It's the
I get a lot of
portal. It's the portal period for the.
at the beginning of every new administration, after an election, a bunch of people swap jobs in
Sure.
DC and go to different. They kind of all replace each other. But it's definitely clear that this is meaningful to the Post, and it's not something that folks inside the Post are taking lightly. And I think that it's just clear that the results of the non-endorsement continue to be kind of damaging. And of course, the bad thing about journalism and media is if you lose these journalists, they go to directly compete against you somewhere else most of the time.
Yes.
So it's definitely bad for the Post, even if they recover. And there are a lot of great people who still work there. It's obviously not something that they want, and they fought to try to keep some of these journalists who were not.
Well, let's push back a little bit here, because is it something that they wanted? High price talent. If it leaves, it saves you money. But I think the biggest decision that they made in terms of personnel, at least from my understanding, was the decision not to keep or promote Matea Gold, who was a beloved editor there. Sally Busby's deputy, basically. Reporters worshipped her. And once she left and she went to the Times, I'm not surprised to have seen that a number of top reporters who were very much tied to her, worshipped her, decided, you know what, I'm going to leave too.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting question. I mean, I think the reality is the Post, as made clear today by the cuts on the business side, needs to save money, and a lot of the people who left undoubtedly were probably some of the better paid people on the editorial side of the paper. And if you choose to take a rosier version, there have been some reports, about that the Post has decided on who its next executive editor will be. That person's going to want to bring in some folks, so maybe this gives them some run to bring people in. And of course, the Washington Post is one of the most iconic news organizations
The Post is
in
the
America,
Post,
in
right?
the world. Yeah, yes, exactly. It's Watergate.
Well,
It's everything. People will go there.
Well, this brings up an interesting segue because they announced they're doing this 4% layoff. A lot of the departments that got hit appear to be advertising and PR. And then in this memo that's put out about it, they talk about how they're going to shift towards what they call talent-driven journalism. Personalities and creators will lead the way. That really kind of stood out to me because on the one hand, what you just said, the Post is the Post. Like the brand is what kind of has been the foundation forever. And it's kind of that's what's helped it stand out. But then also like all the personalities, the main biggest reporters have left. So like if you're going to do star or talent driven journalism, you should have held on to your talent.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that for sure this is something that that is going to losing some of the stars hampers that ability. I mean, I want to kind of look at both sides of this, which is I think that the Post is definitely on to something in general. And thank you for reading my tweet. I believe I tweeted out the memo that said some of that stuff. I don't know if you're reading mine.
I didn't want to give you credit, but since you're insisting
I'll give
on
myself
taking
credit.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what folks, hold on one second. This is what talent driven journalism is right here.
Yes, we want. Yes, exactly. We want credit for the stuff that we put out. I think that the Post is on the right track with the idea that, and I think it's in a reaction to two separate things. One, they, as a part of the cuts, they said they're no longer going to be promoting things on television anymore, which is really interesting. I think the popularity of things such as this on shows such as this on channels such as this on YouTube is part of the reason why they see diminishing returns in kind of pushing things out through traditional channels, which just means either promoting it on television or sending out blasts to other reporters, hoping that other reporters at other news organizations will cover this. The reality is that the Post is right, that the ecosystem is changing and the ways that people are getting news is changing. They should be focused more on places like YouTube or like people who are popular news influencer kind of creator types, and that's where there is a lot of energy and maybe places, new ground to be gotten. But when they lose top talent who have already built some of those followings of their own on social media through their reporting, that obviously hampers some of those efforts. So I think that they're
maybe the question is maybe the question is not losing top talent, but what kind of talent you want to prioritize, right? Like the talent is all written journalism, right? Like great reporters who do great writing, but you're refocusing towards more of a kind of digital video landscape, then maybe you got to rethink what talent actually is, right?
Well, I think the idea is that people I think that what they want, not to totally toot our own horns here, is they want people who do all of it. Sam, obviously, you and I worked together when you were an editor at the Huffington Post, and you started out, blogging and reporting there. You do television, you do YouTube, you write newsletters, you edit. Like,
don't forget the podcast. Don't forget.
How'd you find that?
This is like really one of the saddest stories. We have about 40 nerds now who work in DC.
Do you call them nerds?
I do. For the full-time nerds. And one of the nerds was sitting at home on a Sunday and had C-SPAN on, and was sitting at his computer doing research, and C-SPAN was on in the background. Not soccer or not the World Cup, but C-SPAN. And he looked up at the TV and he saw it. Like, he saw it live. He saw Joe Garcia pick his earwax, look at it, and then put it in his mouth. And then he immediately emailed the war room and was like, we need to pull the video of C-SPAN from the last 5 minutes.
Candidate confessional. Don't you dare forget.
The podcast that Sam used to host that I worked on that had a different name. But
don't talk about that one. That one, we're bringing that back.
Out there. No, but I think that the idea is that the Post actually the Post wants its journalistic talent to be more multidimensional. And I do think that you see that among a certain set of more online savvier, kind of folks. Actually, the Times already does this to a certain degree. Not to kind of stomp on the grave of the Post, but the Times already does this. If you look at the Times website, they feature a lot of their journalists doing the vertical video. Basically that's built for TikTok and Instagram Reels and stuff like that. So they want journalists to be able to
the
do
whole Blake Lively. Yes, exactly. The Blake Lively story. Basically, I consume not through their written story, although it was there because of the vertical videos and all.
You're the second person who told me about that specific story and consuming that reel or that video to help explain it to them.
Well, and that's sort of the perfect, but that kind of is the perfect combo, right? It's like Hollywood star, Me Too scandal. You're going to get it through your Instagram Reels or something like that. I'm dating myself by saying Instagram Reels, but whatever.
I don't use TikTok, so
and so that's sort of natural. I think the Post may have some complications because it's a staid political journalism entity. Now, I will say in the age of Trump, that might change, right? Like, see, this is the thing that I don't really understand. And you can see divergent paths here. Like the Journal, Wall Street Journal, has basically come in and sucked up a lot of the talent, including from the Post, Josh Jossie, but also Meredith McGraw, old colleague of ours at Politico. And they're basically making a commitment. We want to just invest in political reporting, but the Journal's never going to be this. They're going to be straight political journalism. The Post, I don't know. Are they going to? It doesn't seem like they're going to go in a divergent direction. They're probably going to play it straight too. And will that translate into different mediums?
I think part of what they want to do with they announced last year that before all of the kind of chaos around the non-endorsement, they announced that they wanted to build something called like the third newsroom, which is supposed to
Is that still happening?
Yeah, it is still theoretically it definitely is still happening. I don't, but again, I think that is really undefined still. That remains kind of something that they are building up. It's all theoretical now. Things only kind of.
It's funny when that was announced. When that was announced, I know people were kind of mocking it, but I actually thought it was smart.
I don't think it's a terrible idea at all. I mean, I think having the mentality that journalism and news could look different than just the old boundaries that existed when things were just text on a page. I think that's not necessarily a bad.
It's just about delivery. It's delivery systems for information, right? Like you can't just be so single-minded in how you deliver information to people, right? And if you can build an entire unit that's on par with the other information gathering elements of your newsroom that's devoted to delivery, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think, absolutely. I think it does too. I think that the problem that a lot of media companies that try to do things like this, which is move from what they do well into something that they don't quite do yet, and rely on that to kind of grow their business, is committing to a whole bunch of different stuff at kind of like getting like you're dipping your toes into a whole bunch of different stuff.
But this was where this is where they were in the aughts when they were like, oh, we have to move from print to digital. This is impossible. Like, what the fuck are we going to do? And everyone's lapsed us. And, we were at the HuffPost. I was at HuffPost. You came shortly after at the time. And we were like, oh my God, like we are going to be ascendant over these, huge media companies that have been around for decades. And of course it didn't work out because they figured it out. And so, maybe it will work out. Maybe the Post will eventually find its footing.
I don't think that the Post is going anywhere. They have as long as they have a billionaire owner and an amazing net.
Is there any indication that is there any indication he's tired of this shit?
I think it waxes and wanes depending on who you talk to. I talk to some people who are like, he's more involved than he was before. You hear more from him about the Post. He's obviously spoken publicly about it. He spoke at the Deal Book Summit, talking a little bit about his thoughts on this and explaining his thoughts on the decision. But then you talk to some people who think, he's still kind of this is not a huge priority for him. He's checked out, and obviously he doesn't love floating the losses either. I mean, that's the reason why you've seen round after round of layoffs. I think he clearly wants it to sustain itself to some sort of degree. We haven't heard any buzz about them wanting to sell it. At least none that's been reported. So that's obviously, of course, a good sign. And, he has come out and made these decisions kind of quite publicly. And he's stood by it, even though it is inconvenient. I don't think that it's not a popular point to make, but it is true that he has lost a tremendous amount of money on owning the Washington Post. And I'm sure it's also damaged part of his businesses, which is one of the reasons, of course, that he's, going to kiss the ring at Mar-a-Lago and such.
Well,
did he go to he did. He went to Mar-a-Lago, right?
I believe so.
He's one of everybody else who did.
I mean, everyone did. What is I'll leave you with this, but what is, from your understanding, what is the mood like inside the newsroom now? I mean, obviously every newsroom, minus this one that I'm in, is miserable. Oh, maybe yours is great.
Ours is pretty good. The smaller places, they tend to be okay. Yeah.
Happy. Yeah. But like, how bad is it?
It's terrible. I mean, it really is. The mood is obviously awful. These are the people who are left feel like they're on, like the ship is sinking. And this happens, I've covered a lot of, as you mentioned, these cycles happen and they're natural and there are obviously ups and downs. And we're about to enter into, 4 more years of what will certainly be kind of a fascinating and crazy political period, not only with Trump back in office, but yeah, exactly. No, of course not.
I think it's all
going to be normal. All going to be normal. Exactly. No, but you're going to, not only do you have Trump, but you also have, if he's only in office for one term, which, let's assume maybe for now that he is, though maybe it's a silly assumption, then you also have the Republican jockeying to replace him, which you assume would be
if Elon Musk, you have all this shit.
And you have the Democratic side. There's going to be a lot of things that presumably could draw back some subscribers to the Post, which is, of course, still the main way that it gets its business. So, or it's the main thing that its business is built around. I think that really, to me, is the core challenge for the Post, is that they really leaned in and built their brand around the democracy dies in darkness. A lot of people paid attention and were willing to open their wallets to the Post because they wanted to hear what was going on inside the Trump administration.
So why not do that again? It worked.
Because those people felt like clearly there's a significant portion of those people. I mean, to be clear, most didn't cancel their subscriptions and still believe in it, but a significant chunk said, we're not buying that anymore. We don't really like that. And so they're going to have to
they canceled over the decision to not endorse.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, if that was like the original sin of this, but like, I'm just saying, you could brand again as sort of a bulwark of accountability, but I guess maybe not at this point.
That's tough. Well, and there's also the other thing too, is that there's other opportunities for people who feel that they want to support that kind of mission-driven journalism. Places such as the Bulwark did not exist, previously, and I think that there are a number of other places that have leaned very heavily into that. If you look and you see the Guardian, places like Vox, which they last time around, the Guardian had some subscriptions, but they weren't leaned in the same way. No. Vox didn't have subscriptions in the same way. Everybody, there are more places out there that are soliciting subscription dollars. So I just think it'll be harder to kind of
the model has moved away from ad revenues and third-party platforms to subscription models, and so when the audience for resistance or accountability journalism, is finite, you just sort of have to compete in that audience.
Or they could go the other way, which is something that my boss at Semaphore, Ben Smith, has suggested, which is that they go and try to kill Politico, which by going for the kind of insidery, the big, huge advertisers that spend on Washington stuff to get in front of lawmakers, to build more competitors, to, take away some of the ad dollars that go to Politico Playbook, which have come from like the big lobbying, big companies lobbying Washington, and that the Post sometimes hasn't been able to compete with or be as nimble on. You could go in that direction as well. That could be another line of revenue, but I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. All right, we'll leave it there. As always, Max Tani, one of the most distinguished, professorial, lovely human beings, a true gem in the rough. Thank you, Max. Appreciate it. As always, do subscribe to the feed. We'll be, keeping you informed. Take care, guys.
Thanks for having me, Sam.